Abuse of prescription drugs by young people is on the rise, and the CSRA is not immune to this very real issue.
A lot of young people think prescription drugs are less risky because they're prescribed by a doctor. Preventing domestic violence, it is the goal of a panel comprised of some heavy hitters, the state's attorney general, law enforcement agencies, and advocacy groups.
Hi everyone. 4 years after the invasion of Iraq, it's a good time to take stock. Since the war began, 3,192 U.S. troops have been killed, more than 24,000 wounded. At least 50,000 Iraqi civilians have died.
It's war.
Welcome home. Welcome back to W.A.R. War. We're all recovering. I want to open this one from the heart, okay? A lot of people think trauma is always loud, explosions, chaos, one moment that changes everything. But some wounds don't show up that way. Some wounds don't break the body, they fracture the soul. And today's guest has spent his life sitting with people in those quiet, unseen moments. Dr. Larry Brant is a Navy chaplain, combat veteran, and a board-certified chaplain who spent 25 years in pastoral ministry before entering the military. He has served sailors, deployed, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen, and has walked alongside people carrying PTSD and moral injury. He's also the author of Restoring the Broken, a ministry leader's guide to understanding and healing moral injury. I love that. And his work centers on helping people find language, healing, and restoration when they feel like they've fallen too far to come back. Dr. Brant, welcome to W.A.R. War. We're all recovering.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yes, sir. It's an honor to have you. Dr. Brant, you spent years working with PTSD and moral injury, both in ministry and in the military. For someone hearing those words but not fully understanding them, how would you describe what PTSD actually is at its core?
Well, what PTSD is, it's fear-based trauma. So PTSD is something that happens to you that traumatized you so much that it breaks you down emotionally, and you have trouble recovering back from it. You may be fearful that something's going to happen. You may be hyper-vigilant because you're afraid that the next thing is going to happen and your life's going to be in danger again, or someone may threaten you. And so it leans very much to paranoia, to fear, and then the flip side to that is moral injury. I kind of call it the uglier twin, because what moral injury is, instead of it being fear-based, moral injury is action-based on you. And so that's when the individual does something, sometimes at the direction of someone in authority over them, or if they choose to fail to prevent something. And the end result of what happens just goes against everything that they believe in morally, ethically, and especially spiritually. That it just emotionally breaks them in a way in which they are just absolutely consumed by guilt and shame.
Yes, sir.
Over what is happening, and quite often reaching the point where they feel like they're no longer lovable, they're no longer forgivable by their friends, their family, especially by God.
Oh, man. You're going to make me cry early. It's so true, because I was in a PTSD program and for 6 months. And somewhere, like I think month 2, I started on moral injury. And that was one of the toughest, because they basically break it down into like classes. And that was one of the toughest classes I had to take and confront, everything that was really going on with me. And that broke me down. And we had to, like, they gave us a booklet like this big that we had to actually fill out, like they had questions we had to fill out, and then we had to go to group and talk about it, and it was just hard. It was just hard, and I didn't realize that that's what was going on with me, and yeah, like I'm tearing up just thinking about it. And
Ask where that program was.
yes, it's called Aspire, and it's in San Diego. It's a six
I
month
did
program.
I did my CPE residency there.
No way.
Yes.
No
When
way, Jose.
I did CPE in San Diego in the Navy program, I did it from September of 20 to September of 21. And from March to September of 21, I was a resident chaplain at Aspire. So
No way.
I know exactly the program you're talking about.
Oh, that
It,
is
it helped inspire me what I'm doing today.
wow, that's amazing.
Isn't
So
it?
you probably know all of the people there and everything, and I don't want to put their names out because I didn't get permission to, but yeah, you probably know what's going on, and with the people, and
They are such wonderful, dedicated people. They are so
right.
dedicated to veterans that
Yes.
the people that work there just inspire me. Not
Yes.
aspire, but
Yes.
inspire. But
Yes, and they really care. They really care. It's such a great program. So it like
it
saved my life.
I I I cannot understand why, and I hope one day that they do. I think the VA should replicate that at every single major medical center.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that would be a perfect, idea, because it helped me in like a lot of ways. Like my PTSD didn't hit me until I got out. My last deployment was in 2007. I got back from my last deployment. My PTSD didn't hit me until 2024. It was written in my medical records that I had PTSD, and I didn't even know it. But it didn't really hit me until after my motorcycle accident, where I died, by the way.
Ooh,
I died twice. I was dead for 13 minutes, and then I came back and died again. But during the healing process, it's like it rewired my brain, and I just like flashbacks, and it just hit me hard, and that was just my downfall. Like
for me, PTSD hit me in 2014. I just refused to acknowledge it. I
right,
refused to deal with it. I'm the chaplain. I can't possibly have PTSD. I didn't
right,
shoot anybody.
right,
But that doesn't mean people weren't shooting at me, and things weren't exploding all around me, which they were. But it really wasn't until 2024 as well that uh, my beautiful bride said, you probably should have that kind of checked out on you, and make sure that you're getting the appropriate help for that.
right.
Uh, as usual, I hate to admit when she's right, but when she's right, she's right.
She's
And
right.
it's been so much better. And I help run a PTSD and moral injury group here at 29 Palms, inspired by the Aspire Center.
Wow.
Because when I came here after I graduated from the CPE program that the Navy and the VA have jointly there in San Diego, I came up here to 29 Palms, and my thinking was, why are we waiting until guys are homeless on the streets of San Diego and
Mm,
struggling before we really address PTSD and moral injury? They're
right.
getting individual counseling for the PTSD, but moral injury really wasn't being addressed.
Mm,
And we really didn't have any type of a group format for that here. So I pitched it to the leadership at the hospital, requesting if I could have a mental health provider, we could team lead this group. and do the building spiritual strength material that the VA provides. And they gave me permission to use and kind of tweak it for active duty. And the leadership was all for it. Matter of fact, the executive officer of the hospital, who was a clinical psychiatrist, said, "Chaps, I'll lead it with you." And so since 2022, that's what we've been doing. And it's, my thinking was, I wait until they're homeless. If we can address some of these things before they leave the military,
Mm-hmm.
we could save some careers, we could save some marriages, maybe even save some lives.
Yes. Yes.
And we've had just wonderful results. We've been keeping kind of informal statistics because, to be honest, to keep formal statistics, you have to jump all kinds of hoops with the Navy. But informally, we'll ask them to complete a survey at the beginning, at the middle, at the end, and 4 weeks out. And it's all voluntary. Nobody's forced to do anything. And then we keep all of the results anonymous. And so what we've seen, and it tracks per group that comes through, the numbers are almost identical. We'll see about a 28% reduction in PTSD symptoms. We'll see about a 30 to 40% increase in willingness to use religious resources, whether that's going to church, reading the Bible, or whatever holy scripture that individual sees that is theirs. Because we've had folks from different faith groups come through the program. And then we've seen about an 8 to 10% drop in moral injury symptoms, which is huge for moral injury.
Really huge.
And so that we've been really blessed with that. And so as we were working with that, my wife again said, maybe you need to go back and work on your doctorate. And I was kind of like, but I just finished school. I don't want to go back to school again. But she was right. And
When she's
so
right, she's right.
when she's right, she's right, except for marrying me. I think she kind of went off the rails there. So I did go back to school. And so for my doctoral project, as I have moved around the country, I experienced moral injury in Afghanistan, dealing with the Marines who had to kill, and really struggling with that afterward. And I'm still talking to Marines from that deployment who are still struggling with things. But seeing that, and then especially being an ICU chaplain at the height of COVID, seeing the medical providers just struggle and losing patients every day when they just felt help in dealing with them. And then as I've moved around the country, usually I can talk to a pastor and say, can you tell me what PTSD means? And 9 times out of 10, the pastor can give a pretty decent explanation about what PTSD is. But then if I were to say to the pastor, can you tell me what moral injury is? Usually at that point, I'll get almost a deer in the headlights look. And then, like the explanation that I gave at the beginning of the program, I just gave a simple, quick 1-2 sentence of what moral injury is. And in almost every circumstance, the pastor sits back in their chair and he goes, well, that describes, and they usually name 1 or 2 people in their congregation that they said that description fits them to a T.
Wow.
And so as I was working on my doctoral project, I thought, what about coming up with something that educates civilian chaplains and civilian ministers on what moral injury is and how to help them develop a pastoral response to it. And so that was my doctoral project, called a pastoral response to moral injury. And it went really well. I was able to do some trainings for local ministers and even for some local civilian and groups, being clergy. Then, darn if my wife wasn't correct again. she said, now you need to write a book about that. So, uh, using her, this time I didn't figure she was going to win anyway. Um, uh, I wrote a book about it, and it called "Restoring the Broken," and it's a book for it's a book for ministry leaders, but it's also a book for anybody who just wants to understand what moral injury is,
Mm.
why the church should care about it, and what people as a part of the church, but also people as individuals can do to help people with moral injury.
Oh, that's so deep. Yes, and I don't know what the Marines or the Navy call it, but when you're transitioning out of the military, the Army, they give you ACAPing. It's kind of like job training and everything to make sure you're
Yeah,
successful.
we call it
Right.
TRS.
What is it called?
We call it TRS.
TRS? What does TRS stand for?
Transition, readiness, and separation, I think it's called.
Okay. Okay. I always said that they should have something like, something to deal with like PTSD or, something to kind of throw in there, like stuff that I, thought would be essential to your mental health or something, just to help you transition, like, or get ready for the, what they say, the real world, you know, and they still don't do stuff like that. I don't understand why.
Neither does the Marines and the Navy, and I agree with you 100%. I think even just a basic introduction to that and where they can continue to get resources after they get out would be a huge help.
Right, right, definitely. I wish I would have brought my moral injury certificate. They gave me a moral injury certificate for completing moral injury because at the beginning when they was telling us what was required of us when we
Mhm.
started the class, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not. They wanted you to share your worst moral injury. I did. I shared my worst moral injury, which I thought I never did. First time I spoke about it in since I got out of the military. And then the chaplains asked me to come to the VA hospital in La Jolla to tell the story in front of a room full of chaplains. And I
You
said,
know,
okay, let me.
I bet you did that to the chaplain cohort going through CPE.
Yes, I did. I did. I did. Here, my wife just bought. Thank you, honey. My wife just bought me my moral injury my coin. She couldn't find my certificate, my moral
That is
injury coin.
that is wonderful. I
Right.
didn't
They
even
give.
know there was something. When did you go to the Aspire Center, if you don't mind my asking?
I went. I just here goes my graduation certificate. Also, I went there in September of 2024.
So you worked with, oh shoot, I don't have permission to say her name.
Right.
Uh,
Right. I probably did though.
the female African American chaplain.
Yes. Yes.
She
Yes.
is a very, very good friend of mine.
Yes.
We went through CPE together. We were
Really.
yes. So she is one of my absolute dearest friends.
Wow. So I can't wait to tell her that I got to meet with you and speak with you. She's gonna be thrilled about.
In fact, after we get off this, I'm probably gonna text her and do the exact same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because her groups actually, had a lot to do with my recovery too,
Yeah,
and she's just so sincere and you could just feel it and she's just a wonderful person and beautiful soul and she's funny too. Hilarious.
yes, I
She's
love her
hilarious.
to death. She
Yes,
is
yes.
one of my favorite people.
Yup, she's still there holding it down. I think, well, since when I left, she was there at least.
Well, I'll tell you this, that 6 month program is not an easy program to
It's
complete.
not.
So I'm proud of you, brother. Good
Thank
job.
you, thank you, thank you,
That is
thank you.
that is awesome.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So let's get back to you, doctor.
Okay.
I want to call you Chaplain Doctor, like Doctor Chaplain.
Call me Chaps. Call me Chaps. That's what everybody calls.
Okay, okay, Chap. Okay, so what do people get wrong about PTSD, and when they never lived it?
I think they automatically assume everybody with PTSD is going to become violent.
Mm,
That's not always the case.
right.
Uh, sometimes they just go quiet. Uh, and I know for myself, um, when I'm in a large crowd, I get anxious. Uh, because I'm always looking for somebody with the hidden weapon. And uh, and so usually my wife picks up on that very quick. Uh, so in other words, I don't do Costco at Christmas.
Oh
No,
my. Say
no.
it again. Say it again. Say it again.
And uh, we'll pull up, and my wife will go, "You just stay in the car,
Right.
and I'll be back." And I'm like,
Right.
I love you so much, and
Right.
I can go at other times, but not at Christmas because when everybody's bumping into me, I get a little uncomfortable and
Right.
that. So a lot of people will misunderstand how it comes from that fear trauma where we were afraid for our lives, and they just automatically think that well, if you have PTSD, you're just broken in the head from the word go. No, that's not what happened. That's not. You may have had childhood trauma, or maybe you had like you and I trauma on the battlefield. Um, you can even have trauma in a medical setting, uh, and uh, um, and so I think what the biggest thing that people get wrong is they try to pigeonhole others. To say for PTSD you can only have these exact symptoms. Now there's a range of symptoms you can have, definitely, but you may not have every single one. You're not necessarily violent. Um, you may just be, where you get fearful, you get a little concerned, you get a little anxious, so you just say, "I'm going to go sit in the car for a while."
Right. Right. And I was just thinking, people, unfortunately, when my PTSD hit me at its highest
Mhm.
after that motorcycle accident, I did some things that I'm not, proud of, but ended up in the court system.
Okay.
And my PTSD was used against me in a way. They automatically said that I had PTSD in so many words that I was crazy. Oh, they didn't even know my background.
Hmm.
They just knew I was a veteran and automatically assumed that I had PTSD and that I was crazy.
Right.
You
And
know,
that's a
so
perfect example right there.
right, right, right. So
Uh,
you've asked, oh, go ahead.
I
Sorry,
was
chat.
just going to say, I can remember coming home from Afghanistan and I was talking with a family member on the phone, and the family member said, "Well, you don't sound like you have PTSD." And I was like, "Just what exactly does that mean?
Mm.
Did you think I'd
What
come
does
back?"
that sound like?
Yeah, and that can be just one example of how people have mistaken thoughts or mistaken ideas about what PTSD is or how it even manifests.
Right, exactly. Thank you for that. So, if you've asked important questions in your work, does PTSD and moral injury only happen to veterans? From what you've seen, who else carries these kind of wounds?
Well, I've seen it in medical providers, especially those who went through COVID. But maybe if they're at a hospital that is short staffed and uh, they're having to work long hours, uh, make decisions that maybe they're not necessarily trained or qualified to make because the supervisor's not there because the supervisor is supervising more than one area, but the decision has to be made right then and there, and then maybe it doesn't go well. I've seen it in when an operation doesn't go well, uh, especially if they're a new doctor or a new anesthetist, and all of a sudden they start questioning their abilities to be able to provide health care, um, and they start thinking that they're bad. You know, I've seen it in first responders who respond to a situation. Maybe uh, they respond to a situation. They had to make a lightning fast decision, and it doesn't go well, uh, and they blame themselves for that. Or I've
Right.
seen it in first responders who are responding to a situation, and on the way to the location, perhaps they get into an automobile accident in which someone in the other vehicle is injured, and they really take that very hard and feel like they're unforgivable for causing injury to that innocent bystander.
Mm.
I've also seen it in someone who is sexually traumatized. You know, they were sexually traumatized, and maybe their body reacted a particular way while they were being assaulted, and they're ashamed of how their body reacted. Or perhaps the perpetrator or predator um, of the act kept saying over and over and over, "I'm doing this because you did this," and just kind of drills it into their head that what was happening to them was their fault because of something
Wow.
we did. And
Mm.
I've seen it in that type of situation, um, and that's just heartbreaking.
Hmm. So, Chat, what does it say to you about, our world that so many people are walking around carrying this silently?
Most definitely, we live in a broken world, uh, but what I'm trying to put out there is that there is a path back for restoration. There is a path back. You know, guilt says I did something bad. Shame says I am bad. Oral injury says I'm unlovable and unforgivable.
Mm.
And what I'm trying to do is get the message out is, but you may think that now, but you don't have to stay that way. There's a
Right.
path back. You know that yourself because you experienced that path back. And
Right.
I'm trying to help um, pastors, ministry leaders, the average person out there to understand how to help people walk back from that. And
Right.
that it's not with just a quick Bible verse, a tap on the back of the on their back saying you're good now. There's nothing wrong with a Bible verse. I'll always go with a Bible verse.
Right.
But you, I think, and I think you'll attest to this, what's really needed is for someone to sit down with them in their pain and just sit with them.
Right.
And, and then when they're ready, be willing to hear their story.
Right. Right. That's why I think that, that PTSD program, at, like you said, at every major location, VA location, will work wonders, because, I got people to do that, sit down with me and actually hear my story. And I got to
And you
cry.
hear when you tell the
Right.
story.
Right, exactly. And I got a chance to, I wasn't too, I got a chance, it's impatient. So I go back up to my room and cry it out or whatever. And then if I felt like, everything was crashing down, it was somebody there I could reach out to and talk to immediately on call or whatever the case was, no matter what time it was. So I think that would help a lot of people, you
Yes.
know.
And in the group, you had the leadership there who were dedicated to the veterans,
Right.
but you also had the other folks, the other residents that were there with you, And when you share their story and
Right.
they share their story, it helps
Right.
us. Hey, I'm not alone in how I'm feeling.
Right. Very good point. The other veterans, yeah, yeah. I couldn't. It was like a perfect combination of everything, you know. So very good point. Like the other veterans like helped me, kept me motivated and everything. And yep, you're absolutely right. Excuse me.
I think that's a big reason why the encouragement of the other veterans, the dedication of the staff, the voice that the chaplain has at the table,
Right.
because one thing that I dearly loved while I was doing my residency there at Aspire Center was that the chaplain had an equal seat at the table.
Right.
And when
Right.
when we would talk about a treatment plan for a particular resident, the chaplain's expected to have a say in that
Right. Right.
and have something prepared to address to it, and treated like an equal professional. And that was wonderful. I
Right.
just I just love that place. I can't
Yes.
speak
Yes.
highly,
Me
I
too.
can't speak highly. And I
Yes. Yes.
know I have a kindred spirit in you.
Yes, yes, sir. And I think that I know that the chaplain, her groups, like it just changed. Like I've always, believed in God and everything, but I've lost my way along the way. Where so much I seen, I just couldn't believe that a God would let it happen. But
Which
when I
is
went
typical of someone with moral injury.
Right, right, right. And with the chaplain talking to her and everything, she just during them times that I had group with her after the group, I always felt better and I always let God back in a little bit more. And by the time I was done with everything, like I'm really putting all my faith into God, and I just feel so sad for people that don't believe in God or don't have a higher power. Like, doesn't it feel so lonely not to have God in your life? Like, please believe in Him, and He will change your life.
Amen. I couldn't say it better.
Thank you, thank you. So, Chap, you spent decades in pastoral ministry and then stepped into military chaplaincy. How does trauma affect a person spiritually when they're trying to make sense of, what they've lived through?
Great question. Trauma can really challenge someone's faith and spirituality. Uh, it can make them question themselves. Am I really lovable by God? Why would God have allowed this to happen? Maybe He allowed it because I'm not worthy of His love. I'm not worthy of His forgiveness. Um, it can make them angry, where they are angry at God because He didn't stop the situation from happening. It can just make them believe that maybe God isn't even there in the first place. This happened to me because there is no God. That's what I've come to believe in all of that. Um, so there's several different avenues where uh, trauma can really challenge a person's faith and spirituality. Exactly.
So, what happens inside someone when their sense of right, duty, or goodness feels betrayed?
Usually, what happens is they begin to question everything. They question everything that they have believed in up to that point. Um, they question God. They question the institution they're in. For instance, you were in the Army. If you did something and you were ordered to do it by someone in authority over you, and then afterward you felt like they betrayed you, um, then you no longer have uh, trust and confidence in the institution of the Army. You no longer have trust and confidence in the hierarchy of the rank system, and um, you literally question everything. And if you question everything, then you no longer have a foundation in which to stand on, and everything underneath you just starts shifting like sand at the beach when the waves come in.
Well said. I visualize everything you just said. Well said, chap. Well said. Oh, your life. This is a fabulous, fabulous conversation. By the way, thank you for being here. Thank you. This just made my month, my whole month of February. Thank you so much. I can't wait to I'm skipping people. I'm putting this out, I'm putting this out next week. Next week Thursday. This is coming out.
Oh, sweet.
Um yes,
And
sir. Yes, sir.
I'll send you the link to the book. Um,
Okay.
and and then I'll also send you my email, which you can put in the show notes should anybody want to reach out to me.
Yes, sir. Definitely, definitely. Thank you. Your life work centers around spiritual and emotional well-being of people in crisis. So when someone is carrying deep guilt or shame, how does that shape the way they see themselves?
When they're carrying deep guilt and shame, usually there's a transformation, uh, and they begin to believe that they're not, as I've mentioned already, they're no longer lovable, they're no longer forgivable. For some,
Mm,
they even begin to believe that they are infected with evil.
mm.
And so, because of that infection that they believe that they have, emotionally, morally, spiritually, they pull back from everyone in their life. They pull back from their faith. They pull back from their friends. They pull back from their family because they are afraid that if they continue to be close to them, they're going to infect them with their evil as well.
Wow, I never seen it like that.
Yeah, I've
That-
actually seen that on several occasions. And what's really what's really awesome is when you're working with someone and they've crossed that threshold from they start to see hope in forgiveness from God, from self-forgiveness. Usually self-forgiveness is a bigger hurdle than forgiveness from God. Uh,
mhm.
and then um, what happens usually after that is when they start to have a conversation with the closest members of their family, and everything that they've been holding in for years, usually since whenever the incident was that, or incidents that gave them the moral injury, uh, then they reach to the point where I don't need to be holding this in anymore. If they're in a group, they'll share it with a group, and then the group along the way will usually encourage them to share it with their family members, because inevitably, as you probably have lived and seen, when you're feeling that way, you push your family away because you feel, either you feel infected or you feel like you're a burden. And I have seen that on several occasions where, as folks begin to have a breakthrough with this, then they realize I don't need to hide this from my family. And I can think of one gentleman who especially decided to tell his family. He had been keeping them basically at arm's length for 20 years, and
Mm.
then decided to tell his wife and children. And he was scared. He was terrified because for two decades he had convinced himself that if he told his family what he did on deployment, they would hate him and they would see him as a monster.
Wow. Wow.
And then when he finally had that big breakthrough and sat down, with his wife first and then his children second, What he found was the exact opposite. What he found was love and unconditional forgiveness from his family. And the change in him was night to day.
Mm. That's something to think about right there. Mm. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I know that's going to hit a lot of people out there like it just hit me. So thank you deeply. Yeah.
My pleasure.
You've ministered to people on the battlefield, in churches, and in moments of personal crisis. From everything you've witnessed, Chap, what do you think hurts people the most, the trauma itself or the silence that follows it?
I think it's the silence that follows it. And especially the person who experiences that trauma, I think they want to talk about that trauma. They're afraid to talk about it, but they also want to talk about it, um, because when you share that trauma, it's not quite so heavy, but they're afraid about who they can share it with. Is the person going to be rejecting of it? Is the person going to be dismissive of it? Is the person going to be horrified by what they say? And that's where we need to help people to become a safe space for these folks and to teach them how to have a healthy reaction to the story that these people want to share in order to help make themselves better.
Mm-hmm.
But if they react in an inappropriate way, will drive them further into their shell.
Right. So, what do you think that silence does to the human soul over time?
I think it breaks them, it erodes them, and even in some, it convinces them that they don't need to be here anymore.
Right. That's yeah. That's sad, and I've seen it time and time again. And I was thinking the whole time that's probably what they were fighting and what they were going through. You know,
Mhm.
it's sad. It's sad.
Very sad.
Whew. This is deep, Chaplain. Forgive me. This is deep. I didn't think coming into this, I didn't think it was gonna be, feel like therapy, but it's definitely feeling like a session to me right now.
Well,
And
hopefully it's a good session, not a bad
it's,
session.
it's, it's a good session, but what they tell you is like, it's like it gotta feel painful. So I heard it somewhere it gotta feel painful for it to start feeling good or something like that. I'm going through so many different emotions right now. Like I just can't describe it right now because a lot of it is me, that we're talking about.
Hmm. Yeah, that
Right,
makes perfect sense to me.
right. So your book, Restoring the Broken, speaks directly to moral injury and the wounds people carry in deepest places of their lives. What led you to write this book?
Well, as I said, uh, the doctoral project I had in trying to help civilian ministers and civilian chaplains understand what moral injury is, um, my doctoral committee, my wife, uh, several of the people who went through uh, the training sessions that I held for the doctoral project, they just kept saying, if you turn this into a book, I would get it, and it would be really helpful uh, to just put all this stuff in plain language. And so I just sat on that for a while and then realized, that's what I need to do is I need to put this in simple, plain language to try to help as many folks as I can.
So that's who you were thinking about when you wrote the book, were the chaplains and
I was
the
thinking
people
about the
you mentioned.
ministers, the chaplains, and just the family members who are just struggling with how to help their loved one with
Right,
moral.
Right.
That's who I was thinking about.
Okay. In your work, you say that some wounds don't just break the heart, they fracture the soul. That is so deep. When someone reaches that place, where do they even begin to heal?
I think two things. Number one, I pray that they would turn back to God. But sometimes something else has to happen first. They have to find a safe place. They have to find a place where they're not judged. They have to find a place where someone is willing to sit with them in the ashes and the pain for however long they need to until they're ready to talk.
I can't even imagine that a fractured soul. That is, I'm wondering if, like, what would that feel like? Like,
I think you would just, I think what the way it's been described to me is that I feel completely broken from the inside.
like you just like at the point where you just don't want to exist anymore.
Hmm. In some cases, yeah, they feel like it's too hard to continue to exist in that type of misery, or they feel like they're bringing so much misery to their loved ones that their loved ones would be better off if they weren't there.
Right, right. Terrible, terrible. Wow. Mm. This is, I tell you, chap. This is a moral injury all over again for me.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't have things to give you.
Right, right, right. But I looks like I've had a fractured soul. Just just hearing that, and I've just never heard anybody say a fractured soul. So it just kind of hit me differently hearing
Mhm.
it like that. Wow. What's the first step for someone who feels like they've fallen too far to be restored? Is it finding that safe place?
I think it's finding that safe place, finding that safe place, finding that safe person. Um, it may be starting with a simple prayer to God. God help me get back. Um, God love me. Um, in many cases, you have to find that safe space before you feel like God can still love you and forgive you. And that person literally, that safe person, that safe place literally models the love of God for them and helps walk that back. It's not a light switch. It's not quick. It's a process, as you well know.
Right. Definitely. Right. So you talk about helping leaders, as you were telling me earlier, leaders, pastors, and caregivers recognize what's hidden. Why is it so important for people helping others to understand moral injury at a deeper level?
I think because in a lot of situations, moral injury doesn't just pop out of a cake and say, "Here I am. I've got moral injury." It will um, it will show up in other ways, and we will not realize that's what it is. Sometimes we think the person is suffering from burnout. Sometimes we think the person is backslidden in their faith. Uh, Sometimes we just think that they just don't care anymore.
Right.
And all of that is wrong. It's just because um, what they've experienced them has convinced them that they need to back off from everything and everyone, or they'll burden them that much deeper.
Mm, mm. So, what do you think happens when those wounds are ignored inside faith communities?
I think what happens when they're ignored or misunderstood in our faith community, excuse me, that's when you see people step back and drop out. And then because we aren't really aware of what's going on, we make an assumption, and whether it's burnout, whether it's stopped caring, backslidden, something else, we make an assumption and don't follow through with them.
Okay. So you've walked with sailors, Marines, and others who have seen and experienced things that stay with them forever, right? So when someone is carrying pain, they can't even put into words, like sometimes I do. How do you reach them?
If they can't put it into words, then sit with them in the silence. Don't feel like you have to fill the space with words. Sometimes the greatest thing you can do is just be present with, so that they know unconditionally, non-judgmentally, you're there.
Yes, and that's what true presence look like. Well said, chap. Well said. Yes. You spent your life helping restore people who feel broken. Do you believe that no one is beyond healing?
While they're breathing, there's hope. That's my motto.
There's hope. There's hope. Restoration.
Mm-hmm.
So what gives you that belief after everything you witnessed?
Just that. Some of the things that I have witnessed, some of the people that I have worked with who I really questioned whether or not they could walk themselves back from the abyss. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people come back from the darkness and place their faith back in God again, allow God to forgive them and allow them to forgive themselves, and to enjoy life again. That's where I know that this is possible, because I've seen it. I've seen it.
Chat, what do you want people, when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
What I want my legacy to be is a legacy of hope and restoration.
Hope and restoration. Pat, this has been great. Rude awakening. It was just beautiful conversation. I want to thank you, for the work you've done and doing, and the lives you've helped carry through some of the very, very heavy seasons. You spend a lifetime reminding people that even the deepest wounds deserve to be seen, understood, and cared for. So Thank you for that. And for anyone listening right now who feels like they're carrying something they can't talk about, maybe this conversation helped them realize they're not alone. Thank you for being here with us. To everyone listening, thank you. Thank you again, chap.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir. It was an honor. It's war. Each one reach one. We're all recovering. Peace.
The invasion of Iraq is a good time to take stock. Since the war began, 3,192 U.S. troops have been killed, more than 24,000 wounded. At least 50,000 Iraqi civilians have died.
It's war.